Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today we are here to take a look at my top 10 most disappointing 4Ks of 2024. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. All right, so most disappointing 4Ks. I don't want to say the worst 4Ks because in a lot of cases, these are really good 4Ks. There's just something about them one way or the other that just left me wanting, let me down. It could be packaging. It could be pricing. It could be a combination. It could be a bad 4K, like the restoration could be bad or leave you wanting. The sound, the hype, whatever. These just sort of missed the mark for me in 2024. And in some ways, this is a subjective list, and in other ways, it's an objective list. Like I'll point to the actual technical things if there is something. So I don't want to say worst because I'm glad that I have all these, but there is a reason that they're just not up there. So I'm going to start out. They're not really ranked. Maybe loosely ranked, but I'm going to start out with one that is not on the list really, but it's just kind of an dishonorable mention, and it's actually through mostly no fault of its own. And I'm talking about Twister. This is a really good 4K. It was so overhyped, and we in the community can be guilty of this sometimes, but it was so overhyped, and I love this movie. But when I got it, I was expecting it to be just earth-shattering, just knock my socks off, because there are certain 4Ks that you put in and they just knock your socks off. And it doesn't matter. Like I always know that if I put them in on my budget 4K, like QLED, and my Sony player versus the Panasonic player, and I put it in that setup, and it looks really good, just like holy crap, it looks good. I know that when you get it on the OLED, you get it on the Panasonic UB820 or 9000, whatever, earth changing, earth shattering. This didn't do that, and it's good. It sounds good. It looks great. The green is overcooked in here. I get that that's what the director wanted, but I live in a place that has a lot of tornadoes, and we'll say that it looks green outside, that it's a little yellow, like you learn those signs. It doesn't turn, I at least have never seen it turn just like neon green, where it looked like someone was shining a neon light. So, but overall, like this is a insanely good 4K. It's just sort of the hype machine and a couple of other little things that, like, man, it was so up, it could never live up to those expectations. So just a little honorable mention for Twister, but I love it. Now, one that is on here because, number one, was it needed? I mean, I always say go to 4K, but number two, you just can't really tell much of a difference between it and the Blu-ray, which was from the same 4K scan. And I've talked to my buddy Brian at the Last Movie Standing about this one. I'm talking about Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. This is one that, they went and they added like Dolby Vision and stuff like that to it. But it is the exact same 4K scan. And here's what you have to remember, and I've talked to Brian about this too, because he's a filmmaker. And when you're evaluating 4Ks, there's some things that you need to remember. If it is a 4K scan, that if what is on the Blu-ray is the 4K restoration that they put on a 4K disc, if it is that same 4K restoration and they go and put it on a 50 gigabyte Blu-ray disc, and then you put that into your 4K player that has upscaling, and maybe your TV has upscaling too, I mean, you're starting to close the gap over what you can see on the 4K in a big way. So you have to take in those things. Like, so you have especially if the 4K is just on a 66 gigabyte disc, you're only talking about 16 gigabytes difference worth of room. there. So the compression starts to be less and less, and it's the same 4K restoration. And then you throw it on something that upscales it, your eyes are going to have a very hard time telling the difference at that point, especially if it's a 50 gig Blu-ray, a 66 gigabyte 4K disc, and then you're on something that's upscaling it, and it's from the exact same 4K restoration. Man, there's just not a lot of room for it to look a whole lot different. So I think that's the case with Elvira. It's just there might be some spots that you can tell just slightly difference. You know, they're working from the film elements that they had, and they did the same 4K restoration. So it's not one that you put it in, you're like, wow, that knocks my socks off. It's not one that you put in there and you go, wow, I can tell such a difference from the Blu-ray, because you can't. It's the 4K scan. It's the 4K, same 4K restoration. It's negligible difference in disc size. And then you throw it on these players that are automatically lifting it up. Hell, this day and age, some of these receivers also upgrade stuff as it passes through them. So you're getting all this, even if it's a 2% better from your, if for upscaling from your 4K player, and then another 2% from your pass through of your audio video receiver, and another 2%. Like you're gaining all of this clarity, and it's just closing the gap. So I feel like that's the case here. I just don't feel like it was, that big of a deal. But I love the movie. I just think you're fine with the Blu-ray if you have it. The next one's going to be controversial. I did a full review of this. I explain why. Now, this is a pristine, beautiful, like the 4K itself, the picture is pristine. But I am talking about Desperado from Arrow. It's disappointing to me because the color range of this is just not something that, and I did a full review of this where I explained to you how damn good it is, but at the same time, it's just not one that's going to show off your 4K system. There's the color on this, the way it was shot, the sun-drenched, bleached out, dusty, all that kind of stuff. I even show in that video, maybe I can throw it on here, I don't know. I even show in that video where I just took footage of it and did a quick little Rec 709 color grade, like just a standard color correction, not a grade. And, it in my opinion, it looked a little bit better color-wise, but you don't want to change what the vision is. So of the director or whatever with the color. So it's purposely made to look like that. And with the way that it looks, it is pristine. There is nothing wrong with this 4K whatsoever. It's great. I just am disappointed because it's like, it doesn't show off everything a 4K player, 4K setup can do. And it's such a cool action movie and these awesome slow-mo sequences and everything else. Maybe I don't know. It just doesn't show off what your system can do. And I would have liked to seen, there was no, new grade on this. This is one where I would have considered a new grade if the director was okay with it. Now, the director approved this. I believe that Robert Rodriguez approved this. This was done by Sony. It doesn't actually say that he approved it or not. Maybe I would like to see that just to see what it looked like. But that's why I say these aren't, I didn't want to say the worst 4Ks. They're just disappointing to me for different reasons. This steelbook is beautiful. The other part that makes this one on the disappointed list is this is too expensive. This 4K by itself cost almost as much as that Mexican trilogy box, or Mexico trilogy. It was overpriced, and it's still expensive now. Like I think we were talking about the other day, it's like $50 on Amazon for this thing. So it's part of the disappointment is the price. It's too expensive for what it is, but this is one where also a little disappointing that Arrow didn't do it themselves. They got this from Sony. So it's, one that they didn't put the same kind of effort in. So there's just a few little things that ding it. Overall, though, if you don't have this on Blu-ray, I would highly recommend purchasing this one because it is a great looking steelbook. But man, that price is a knockdown too. The next one, you're gonna think I'm picking on this series, but the next one is Twisters. I didn't see this at the movie theater, so this is all I have to go on. And the movie is okay, so maybe that is part of what it is. But like when you compare, because they shot this on 35 millimeter as well, they shot this on film. But when you compare it to this, like this looks way better overall. In my opinion, this looks way better. This sounds way better. This one sounds way better than this. Now, I don't get huge, up my own rear end about the sound because I don't have the complete Atmos setup and everything. But you can feel the difference watching this one with the sound over this one. And, again, with the steelbook pricing and the steelbook being hard to get and all that, now you can get the standards pretty easy. But I don't know. I just feel like when you compare it to this one's a little bit lacking. The first movie is better, too. The first movie is better. So just kind of, it's not everything I hoped for visually or from a sound point of view or just from a movie point of view, though it's thoroughly enjoyable. So Twisters kind of makes my list there. Special features are not that great on it, but it's just a little bit disappointing. So that's why it's on the list. And the next one is one that I talked about a lot. I did a whole video on this one. I like this movie, so calm down. I know a lot of the guys behind making this movie. I worked on the same movie as them. I edited a movie that they shot. But I'm talking about Terrifier 3. This release, I went into a lot of details on it. Number one, I just think the aesthetic that they're going for doesn't jive with 4K. You're going for a gritty, dirty aesthetic, and then you're making the picture overly pristine. I honestly think that, like the for Terrifier 2, VHS is the best way to watch that movie. I feel like that's the aesthetic they're going for. And I had people say, well, so you're telling me that, you shouldn't restore films like Nightmare on Elm Street and blah, 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 because they had that aesthetic. No, they weren't trying to achieve an aesthetic with digital photography, right? Or cinematography. Those films were shot on film, and they have that aesthetic because that's the way they looked on the film. Right. And because that is how they could be delivered to you. The only way they could be delivered to you was in standard definition, whether it was on TV back in the day, CRT TVs, VHS, and then later DVD standard def. Like that's the only way they could be delivered to you. So that's the way you saw them. That's not how they looked. They weren't going to make this. This is trying to give the aesthetic of the way those films were delivered to you on VHS. So they're coding that on. When you go back and you restore Nightmare on Elm Street, you have a 35 millimeter print. You restore it, it looks way good. And now you can watch it in 4K. So some of that aesthetic is gone. Now they lit a certain way and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of that aesthetic is gone. The aesthetic that you remember that they're trying to emulate is due to the shit quality that the only way we could see it was bad quality. So they're trying to emulate that VCR, that VHS look artificially. And then that look is getting a pristine overcoat of 4K. And it just doesn't jive with me as much as I like the movie. And I'm proud of those guys that make it. I think that a Blu-ray would be fine. I think a DVD would be fine. I think the VHS would be great. I'm glad to see Umbrella's going to do a VHS of this. So, but then if you want to get technical, if you're going to go ahead and give me 4K, How come this doesn't have HDR and Dolby Vision like the Umbrella releases? On my review, I said that it did because the original specs for it in the United States, and they're still up on Blu-ray.com, said that it had HDR. When I put it in my TV, it said HDR. So it's trying to either read something that's not there or whatever. So that was all I could go on. But now they say that it doesn't have it. I don't know why my player is automatically picking it up as HDR. But why is Dolby Vision and stuff not included, HDR10 not included on this release when it is on the overseas release? So there's just a few things. But I love these guys. The movie, it's a little over the top for me in places, but there's some things that are just a little disappointing about it. I just don't think it fits right with the aesthetic. And then you leave some things out. On top of that, they purposely blew out the highlights to hell and back to get that aesthetic. So then when you put that in 4K, it's like the manna of heaven outside. So I just don't think everything jives together. But so proud of these guys. Love the movie. And love what they're doing, and want to see more go down the road of Art the Clown here. The next one up is another steelbook. This was a first-time 4K watch for me, first-time watch for me this year, and it just left me wanting, and I am talking about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I like the cast in this, a Guy Ritchie movie. Here's the thing on it. It's shot digitally, and most of the time, if you shoot a movie digitally in excess of 4K or better, it should look phenomenal. And for the most part, this looks really great. But it is inconsistent. I've heard people talk about how great it is. I don't see that. Like, I see it really great in some spots. Like, when it opens up and they're out on the water on the boat, I was like, holy crap, does this look good? But then there's other parts where it's like obviously digital to me, like obviously digital. And it just has a sterile feel to it. And then there are parts that are just outstanding in it. So it's just a bit inconsistent. I heard people compare it to Inglourious Basterds as a film. It is not on that level to me. It is not anywhere close to that level. The opening scene, the opening sequence, the first few minutes of the movie, I thought, man, I am in for a treat. And then it just kind of goes down for me. But, it's well shot, it's well acted, but there are inconsistencies here to me. And it doesn't have like a lot of special features or anything. So if that's what you're into, but just overall, the packaging is cool. But when you slide this off, the steelbook is just kind of plain. It does have a 2-disc set, so I like that from, this is a Lionsgate release. The movie is not on the quality of whatchamacallit. I can't spit it out today. It's not on the quality of Inglourious Basterds as far as a film. It just isn't. That's what it's going for. And there's just times where I'm like, man, is that shot on film? It looks so good. And then there's other times I'm like, ooh, that's really, really digital. And it doesn't look like they tried to add, grain or anything to it. And normally, like, because there's parts they maybe should have. Normally I'm like, whatever, you can do that or not if you shot it digital. Maybe they should have, and it might have helped the consistency of it. I don't know. It just kind of was a little underwhelming for me. So the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare comes in on my list. The next one's on my list because of sheer bullshit pricing. Absolute bullshit pricing. And I am talking about Deadpool versus Wolverine. This got out of hand, and this started a rash of things getting out of hand. When you're talking $60, $70 for a new release steelbook of a new movie, it's unacceptable. Like I said, I got these as gifts. That's the reason I have them. I would not have paid that for them. It is absolutely ridiculous coming from a studio that these cost that much. that's it. That Disney's trying to make up money on us. And, of course, they did 2 alternate, books, Deadpool and Wolverine. I got the other one over there. So not only are we going to try to charge you $60 or $70, we're going to try to, entice you to double dip to do 2 different ones. And they made them harder to get, and they're so expensive. It looks great, and I had fun watching the movie. Me and my son had a lot of fun watching the movie. It looks great. It should. It's a new movie. But the price, you talk about underwhelming, trying to start a trend of hiking up prices on us on just generic, steel books that are coming out, like of new releases. No. So this one's on the list over sheer pricing and nothing else. It's absolute BS. The next one on the list is, there was a lot of problems here. I am talking about Opera from Severin. The film looks pretty good. The price point here, Severin's prices are kind of gotten a little crazy. Now, it's a 5-disc set. It was like $60 or so. But this is just, cardboard. This isn't an Arrow chunky box. This is just cardboard. And we got to talk about the fact that for most of us, it took 8-10 weeks or so to get this. And then they had to issue a replacement disc because they messed up on the color grade. Actually, it was the color correction they messed up on. Part of that was probably, now I appreciate the fact that they went back and painstakingly fixed the aspect ratio to the proper aspect ratio of this film, and that's basically got to be done a frame at a time. So that's a lot of work. I appreciate the work they went into this, but for it to, and it looks okay. The sound, especially the dialogue, sounds kind of hollow in a lot of times. But I mean, these weren't huge budget films and they're older. Shit happens with audio, but you're charging a premium price. This isn't premium packaging at all. It is not premium packaging. It is cardboard. It is not an Arrow chunky box. It's not solid. It's not even as thick as a standard slip from Vinegar Syndrome. It's not. It's very flexible cardboard, and it looks good. The price, the weight, the packaging, the mishap, and having to wait on another disc after you already waited 8 or 10 weeks on the movie. It's a little too much. It just kind of throws a wet blanket on all of it to me. So Opera has to come in on this list for this year. Unfortunately, a little bit underwhelming. Now, the next 2 kind of share a little bit of the same problems for me. But the first one up is The Strangers. There's one of these from Second Sight, I believe, as well. This was sent in as a gift to me, and I absolutely am so grateful to have the gift. And I'm glad to have it in my collection. There's actually nothing wrong with the 4K at all. There's nothing wrong with the 4K restoration on this thing. It was from the digital intermediate, so you're doing it from a digital standpoint. That's always going to, it's not going to be the same as if you have a 35 millimeter print of a film. But it's just these home invasion movies, especially like this, they're very monotonish. They don't lend themselves to a lot of color change, to a lot of, it's kind of part of the problem with Desperado, but these are way up past that. They just don't have they don't really have a need for dynamic range because there's dark, and then everything is like inside a house is kind of evenly lit unless they're going into darkness. And it's just kind of, they did everything they can with the 4K. It's inherent in how it was shot. So it's I don't know that the average person, you could have the best 4K setup ever. I think you could put in a DVD or a Blu-ray and they'd never be able to tell the difference. And that has nothing to do with the actual restoration of it. It is inherent in how it's shot and how it's lit and what they're going for. And the movie overall, while I like it better than You're Next, I don't like it, as much as Hush. Like there are these, home invasion movies. I'm not the biggest fan of them overall because they just don't scare me. But this is a 3-disc set, so that is nice. They give you the unrated version on 4K. They give you the theatrical version on the Blu-ray, and they give you the unrated version on a Blu-ray. But I don't know, it just doesn't lend itself to it to me. And I'm trying to remember, this one does have Dolby Vision, but Dolby Vision for what? Like, it's constantly doing the metadata for what? Like, there's just not that big of a variation in colors. So it's just kind of underwhelming. As a movie overall, it's okay. As a presentation, like, I just don't know that you'd tell that big of a difference. So it's just kind of, okay, I see, and move on. So just a little bit underwhelming. And staying in that vein, get ready, Second Sight fans. I love Second Sight. I love Second Sight. I love Second Sight. Let me tell you that right now. But this one just underwhelmed me. Very underwhelming. I did a whole review of this. You can go in and I explain why. Again, it is shot, I don't want to say monotone, but like there is not a wide color palette. It's digitally shot. It's very predictable as a movie once you've seen it one time. I don't see how it has any rewatchability. And it was very easy to figure out very early for me. But just overall, I mean, the packaging with Second Sight you're going to get, it's great. Always, although, like I've said before, I'm not the biggest fan in the chunky boxes of the Digipack. This thing is just bound to get bent. It's rattly. I would rather you put the plastic, nice 4K, standard case in here, MRA case. The movie just all feels like it's one color to me. They try to go with like some of this like handheldy feel, all that kind of stuff, because I'm sure it was easy to handhold digital camera. It just is not there for me. As a movie, it's not there for me. I don't get it. The dialogue at the beginning when they're around the table is like pretentious. And then I found out like this was created by a bunch of different people who are filmmakers, and the actors are filmmakers. And I'm like, it's like they all are trying to throw their different ideas in there. The movie itself was very underwhelming. The look of it, just 4K does nothing for the look of this. It does absolutely nothing for the look of this. It's like it doesn't matter if it could have easily just been a Blu-ray, because a 4K, while it's shot in 4K, I'm sure, because the digital is shot, it just doesn't do anything for it because of the nature of it. So it just very underwhelming. I did a full review. If you want to see that, I kind of go into more details, show you things, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I had very high hopes. Thought I was going to be excited to watch the movie, got it, and was like, I mean, this isn't going to show off your 4K system at all. At all. So that kind of, but I love Second Sight, love the packaging, except for the Digipacks. That's just a little nitpick. But, just not my type of movie, and it's not one that's made for 4K, in my opinion. But another great package release and everything else from Second Sight. They do good work, great work. They just need to do more of it. We need to get more movies from them. And then the unquestioned number one disappointment on my list actually has nothing to do with the 4K restoration itself, because it's one of the best this year. It's actually, but I will never put it on any list like that. I won't even consider it. It's Riddick, and it's on this list at number one for censorship. It's BS. Do not do that. So if you don't know, I talked about this in another video. This film looks great. It looks great. But at the end, there is just a moment where Riddick is being saved by Katie Sackhoff, and they've had this sexual tension and banter and, this stuff throughout the movie. And when she saves him and they're going up together, he squeezes her butt real quick. And she responds to it with sweet, because it's a callback to something other in the film. And the director decided he wanted to cut that out now because now, by today's sensibilities, he finds it offensive. You can't do that. You don't. If you wanted to do that, we were given a theatrical cut. We were told this theatrical cut on 4K and a director's cut on 4K. If the director wanted to cut it, that needed to be in the director's cut. But it's cut out of both cuts. It's out of both of them. And it was never mentioned that it was altered from the original, that it was censored, because if they said that it was censored, people would have been pissed. So they just didn't mention it. We cannot, this is emblematic, and this isn't on Scream Factory at all, except for they should have told us. They should have told us. I understand if their hands are tied with what the director wanted to do, if he had that much power over it all, which seems unlikely, that he would have had complete power to do that and force it because he doesn't own the film. But if he wanted to do that and Scream Factory had to go along with it, that's fine. They should have told us. They should have told us. What's the point of having two different cuts then? What's the point of the director's cut if he's altering the theatrical as well? So I'm not okay with that, because one of the biggest things that we champion as physical media collectors and proponents of physical media is that we preserve the films, no matter if they were offensive, whatever else. We preserve the films as art, as products of their time, in an uncensored way that streaming doesn't do. Because streaming butchers, alters, cuts, everything. They just put in a abridged version of It's a Wonderful Life on Amazon Prime to cut out the part where it's like Pottersville and everything else, cuts a chunk out of the movie because of who knows why. Then there was like all these different, they did it to get around copyright or this or that. Did they? Because then why do they have the whole full version on there too? So they cut out all kinds of things. You can't even see Daryl Hannah's butt crack in Splash anymore because it's offensive now. Now apparently this moment between these two that had been building all this time, this little butt squeeze, is offensive by today's sensibilities to the director, so he cut it out. And then we weren't told. And then you purchase a movie, you don't see it till you pop it in, it's too late to do anything about it, and it is altered. That is not what the movie was in either theatrical or the unrated director's cut. Why have two separate cuts then? If he wanted to do it, fine. He could say, this is how I feel now. This is my cut. I'm taking it out. Then the line of delineation should have been, that's fine. That's your cut. Theatrical is staying the same. This is what it was. This is what it is. This is what it should be, so that people know what it was at the time. And so the minute you start censoring stuff on physical media, you talk about disappointment and worse, you're going to get thrown into that pile with me. And I'm a huge fan of Scream Factory and Shout Studios. Big proponent of them. I defend them a lot because I think they don't miss on 4Ks. I think that they do great selection, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of this community wouldn't be where it's at, wouldn't exist without them. So I'm a fan of theirs. I am not a fan of this. And for that reason, it is my most disappointing of the year. No censorship. Not a fan. Not a fan. But that's my list. Very subjective in some ways. But, I'm glad to have all these in my collection. This one ticks me off. But they're not all going to be perfect for everyone. And some of you might think these are perfect, and that's totally fine too. But this is my list for the ones that just disappointed me for whatever reason this year. But I'd like to know your list. What are some that didn't quite meet your expectations? And don't just say because they don't have tons of extra features. Don't do that, because there are a lot of variables on why they don't. And, you know, unless you're ready for them to hike up prices on everything to help pay for all those special features, keep that in mind. You do not get a Ferrari for a Pinto price. It just doesn't happen. You know, so if a company has to sell the first 1,000 units of 10,000 just to pay back their what it costs for them to get all these new special features, that juice ain't worth the squeeze. And then you also factor in, I hear a lot of times, well, this little unknown movie got all these special features. How come we didn't get all these extra special features for this big movie? How come they didn't get Stallone back for Demolition Man? How come they didn't get Wesley Snipes back? But you can get all these interviews for Blood Tracks. Well, you know, Blood Tracks or other movies like that, low budget, you know, lesser known movies from a long time ago, the actors and the people involved, they may be happy to talk about it for a few $100s for free, whatever else to help promote them now and get them back out there. Stallone, Wesley Snipes, those people, Sandra Bullock, they have moved on. They're on huge things. It would cost a fortune to get them back. It could renew SAG residuals, all that kind of stuff. There's so many things. So just keep that in mind. So, but let me know what you are thinking down there on some of yours that didn't quite meet the mark for you this year. And we'll have much more positive stuff coming. I'm going to have my favorite overlooked 4Ks this year. Great 4Ks that nobody seems to be talking about. That list is coming. Of course, I will have my roundup of the top 4Ks of 2024. That one's coming soon. Might do a list here of New Year's movies to watch. Lots of stuff. We're going to kick it off running in January. We're going to do some Chase's Criterion Closet critiques. We got 4K reviews, physical media news, lists, rankings, all that stuff. You guys know it's coming, and I cannot wait. I am so excited. If you enjoyed this, like I said, we do all that stuff. Please like and subscribe, share the channel. It helps. We're trying to really grow in the next year, blow by. We're almost at 7,000 subscribers. We want to blow by that, blow by 10, maybe 15,000 or more. Who knows? Sky's the limit for our pop culture family. Get it out there. If you want to help support that in other ways, you can join my Patreon link below or right here on YouTube. Become a channel member, get your name in lights, and, you know, it really does help out the channel. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. I know.